What if I told you that one of history's most legendary battles still hides secrets we may never fully understand? Today, we're diving deep into the battle between Sparta and Persia, uncovering mysteries that historians still can't solve. From hidden strategies to numbers that don't add up, we're going to try to solve the questions that have puzzled scholars for centuries. When we think of Sparta, most of us imagine a small but fiercely disciplined army, led by fearless warriors who could face any enemy without fear. But the real question is, how did this relatively tiny city-state manage to stand against the immense Persian Empire, one of the most powerful forces of the ancient world? It's a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Sparta wasn't just small in population. It was limited in resources and surrounded by larger city-states. Yet somehow, its warriors carved out a reputation for unmatched skill and unbreakable resolve that allowed them to confront a superpower that seemed unstoppable. The Persians were a force of legend. Their army numbered in the hundreds of thousands, stretching across vast regions with wealth, supplies, and manpower far beyond anything Sparta could muster. Conventional logic would suggest that any encounter between such uneven opponents would end in disaster for the smaller force. And yet, time and again, Sparta managed to hold its ground. How is this possible? How did a few thousand men, or in some accounts, just 300 stand firm against tens of thousands? One part of the answer lies in the Spartan way of life. From a young age, Spartan boys were trained to endure pain, to fight relentlessly, and to place the needs of the state above their own. This brutal military education, known as the agoge, was unlike anything seen elsewhere in Greece. Every aspect of their upbringing was designed to create warriors who could survive impossible odds. Imagine being raised to endure hunger, cold, and exhaustion from your earliest years, knowing that your ultimate purpose is to defend your city and your way of life with your life. This upbringing forged not just skill, but a mindset that allowed Spartans to remain calm, disciplined, and coordinated even in the chaos of battle. Another factor was their cohesion and unit strategy. Spartan warriors didn't fight as individuals. They fought as a single, unyielding phalanx. Each man's shield protected the soldier next to him, and every step, every thrust, and every maneuver was carefully synchronized. This created a force that could act like a single, unstoppable wall of steel. Against the disorganized, sprawling Persian army, this level of coordination gave Sparta a strategic edge far beyond what raw numbers might suggest. And yet, it wasn't just their training or tactics that made Sparta unexpectedly strong, it was their ability to inspire fear and uncertainty in their enemies. Persian generals may have been confronted not only with disciplined soldiers, but with a level of confidence and fearlessness that was unnerving. A small force that refuses to break, that meets overwhelming odds without hesitation, can destabilize even the most powerful armies. It's one of the reasons why the story of Thermopylae still echoes through history, not just for the bravery, but for the shock of seeing a few thousand men standing against the seemingly invincible Persian tide. What is even more fascinating is that the strength of Sparta wasn't measured only in battle tactics or training. It was embedded in culture and law, in everyday life. Every Spartan citizen was both a warrior and a part of a society built around military excellence. This created an army that wasn't just strong in moments of combat, but resilient in the face of prolonged campaigns in seemingly impossible situations. When the Persian forces advanced, they weren't just facing soldiers, they were confronting a society that had made war and survival its very essence. And perhaps the most intriguing part of this unexpected strength is that, even today, historians struggle to quantify it. Numbers, supplies, and records tell only part of the story. The real strength of Sparta seems almost intangible, a combination of rigorous training, psychological endurance, societal structure, and a mindset that transformed a small population into a force capable of challenging one of the most powerful empires in human history. One of the most perplexing mysteries surrounding the battle between Sparta and Persia is the question of numbers. Ancient accounts, particularly those by Greek historians like Herodotus, paint dramatic images of massive armies clashing on the battlefield. According to these sources, the Persian forces numbered in the hundreds of thousands, a veritable sea of soldiers stretching as far as the eye could see, while the Spartans and their allies were just a few thousand strong. Some accounts even romanticize the legendary 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, standing as the ultimate embodiment of courage against overwhelming odds. But when we try to analyze these figures with modern historical methods, a cascade of contradictions emerges. Modern historians argue that such enormous numbers for the Persian army are highly unlikely. Logistically, sustaining an army of that size in the rugged terrain of Greece would have been nearly impossible. Feeding tens of thousands of soldiers, moving them through narrow passes, and coordinating their attacks would have required infrastructure and organization that historians believe the Persian Empire likely didn't possess at the time. Yet, despite these doubts, the ancient sources persist, raising a critical question: were the numbers exaggerated intentionally, or did later generations simply misinterpret the scale of the battle? Even the numbers of the Greek forces remain uncertain. While we celebrate the heroism of the 300 Spartans, the reality is that they were not alone. Historical accounts suggest that several thousand Greek allies were present, yet the exact composition and size of this coalition remain disputed. Some historians suggest that the Greek numbers could have been higher, while others argue they were smaller, meaning that the famous stand may have been against a Persian army that was far less immense than popularly imagined. The disparity in reported numbers isn't just a curiosity for historians. It fundamentally affects how we interpret the battle. If the Persian forces were indeed as massive as some records claim, the Spartans' resistance becomes almost mythic in scale. But if the Persians were smaller, then the story shifts slightly, and the focus moves from an impossible heroic struggle to a story of disciplined strategy and effective use of terrain. The stakes of this debate go beyond numbers. They influence how we understand courage, leadership, and military genius in one of history's most iconic battles. Another layer of mystery lies in the inconsistencies between sources. Greek historians often relied on second-hand reports, eyewitness accounts, or even oral traditions, and their numbers sometimes seem influenced by the desire to inspire awe. Persian records, on the other hand, are sparse and less detailed, leaving a gap that makes it difficult to verify any claims. Some scholars have attempted to reconcile these differences by estimating numbers based on the capacity of the terrain, the known logistical limits of armies at the time, and the political realities of the Persian Empire. Yet, even with careful analysis, the results are often speculative, leading to a historical puzzle that refuses to be solved definitively. This uncertainty has fueled debates for centuries. Was the Spartan stand truly a monumental confrontation against an overwhelming tide of enemies, or has legend amplified the scale of events? Did Herodotus and other writers aim for accuracy, or did they craft a narrative to inspire their audiences, blending history with a touch of heroic drama? For viewers today, the mystery of the numbers invites us to think critically about history, to question what we know, and to consider the ways in which stories evolve over time, sometimes becoming larger than life. When we look at the battle between Sparta and Persia, the first thing that comes to mind is bravery and heroism. But beneath the tales of valor lies an even deeper mystery: how exactly were these battles fought? The strategies employed by both sides remain shrouded in secrecy, and historians have struggled for centuries to uncover the precise tactics that led to the events recorded in history. The Spartans, known for their discipline and cohesion, were masters of the phalanx, a formation in which each soldier's shield protected his neighbor, creating an almost impenetrable wall of warriors. But even with such training, how did a relatively small force hold off an army many times its size? There are hints, but no definitive answers. Some scholars suggest that the Spartans' success relied heavily on deception and cunning, not just brute strength. They may have lured the Persian forces into terrain that amplified their advantages and minimized the numerical superiority of the enemy. Narrow passes, such as the infamous Thermopylae, acted as natural choke points, preventing the Persians from overwhelming the Greek lines. But how much of this was planned and how much was luck remains unclear. Ancient texts often describe brilliant maneuvers, yet they rarely go into the practical details, leaving modern audiences to speculate. On the other side, the Persians were renowned for their massive armies and diverse units, including cavalry, archers, and infantry from across the empire. Coordinating such a vast and varied force would have required precise planning and communication. Some evidence suggests that the Persians attempted flanking maneuvers to bypass Greek positions, which in itself points to strategic thinking. Yet the specifics of these maneuvers, how they were executed, and why they sometimes failed, remain a puzzle. Even the famous betrayal that allowed the Persians to outflank the Spartans, showing the path around the mountain passes, recorded only in fragments, leaving room for debate about whether it was a calculated strategy or a stroke of luck. The use of ambush, feints, and intelligence gathering in these battles is also a subject of debate. Did the Spartans send scouts to monitor Persian movements, or did they rely entirely on observation from the high ground? How did Persian generals assess Greek positions and respond to the rigidity of the phalanx? These questions highlight the fact that we may never fully know the tactical exchanges that occurred moment by moment. What we do know is that both sides had to think creatively under immense pressure, and the strategies employed were likely far more complex than the simplified versions we read in history books. Even more fascinating is the psychological aspect of these secret strategies. The Spartans were masters of morale, using fearlessness and a sense of inevitability to unsettle their opponents. Each step they took on the battlefield projected confidence, making the Persian commanders question whether sheer numbers alone could secure victory. The Persians, in turn, had to innovate and adapt, trying to break formations that seemed unbreakable. The interplay of these strategies, some recorded, some lost, and some possibly exaggerated, creates a web of mystery that continues to challenge historians today. And it isn't just about tactics in battle. The planning behind logistics, supply lines, and positioning before and after combat is part of the secret strategy puzzle. How did the Spartans manage provisions for extended standoffs? How did the Persians ensure their enormous army remained effective in hostile terrain? The answers are partially lost to history, buried in the fog of time and overshadowed by stories of heroism, yet these decisions may have been just as crucial as the fighting itself. When discussing the legendary clash between Sparta and Persia, one of the most overlooked mysteries is the battlefield itself. Geography played a role far beyond simply providing a backdrop for the action. It shaped the tactics, the outcomes, and even the legends that would echo through history. Take Thermopylae, for example, the so-called Hot Gates. It wasn't chosen by accident. This narrow coastal pass, squeezed between mountains and the sea, created a natural funnel that limited the ability of the Persian forces to deploy their full strength. Imagine thousands of soldiers trying to advance side by side through a corridor barely wide enough for a few ranks of men. The terrain amplified the defensive capabilities of the Spartans, allowing a smaller force to hold back an enemy many times their size. But the role of geography goes deeper than simply the width of a pass. The steep mountains surrounding Thermopylae offered vantage points for observation and allowed for strategic positioning that could control the flow of battle. Holding the high ground has always been a classic military advantage, and the Spartans used it to maximize their defensive potential. The Persians, on the other hand, had to navigate unfamiliar terrain, slowing their movements and complicating their strategies. The mountains, the cliffs, and even the narrow coastal roads forced the Persian commanders to adjust their plans constantly, giving the Greeks a chance to exploit every opportunity. The geography also influenced the psychological aspect of the battle. The Spartans knew the land intimately, using it to instill confidence and fear simultaneously. They could anticipate where the enemy would be vulnerable and where a concentrated defense could have maximum impact. The Persians, despite their superior numbers, were forced to fight under constraints imposed not by strategy alone, but by the land itself. Every step they took could be a trap, every path a potential disadvantage. This constant tension between natural features and military movement created a battlefield where intellect and adaptability were as crucial as physical strength. Moreover, the climate and natural conditions added another layer of complexity. Ancient Greece was not a forgiving environment for a large army, especially one marching far from its supply bases. Heat, narrow mountain paths, and the rocky terrain could wear down troops before they even engaged in combat. For the Spartans, acclimated to similar landscapes and trained from childhood to endure harsh conditions, these natural challenges were less daunting. For the Persians, moving a vast, diverse army through such terrain required immense coordination, and any misstep could be catastrophic. But geography's role doesn't end at Thermopylae. The surrounding region influenced retreat, reinforcement, and communication. The paths, rivers, and hidden valleys determined how quickly messages could be sent, how troops could maneuver, and how long an army could sustain itself far from home. Some historians suggest that many of the famous tactical decisions were dictated not just by human ingenuity, but by the constraints and opportunities presented by the land itself. Every mountain pass, every narrow road, and every coastal strip played a part in shaping the decisions of generals and the fate of armies. In fact, the geography may also explain some of the more mysterious outcomes of the battle. Why did the Spartans choose certain positions over others? How did the Persians' movements get delayed or rerouted? How much of the battle-esque narrative was influenced by the natural choke points rather than sheer heroism? These questions highlight the subtle, yet decisive, role that geography played in one of history's most iconic conflicts, making it clear that the land itself was a silent participant in the struggle between Sparta and Persia. The battle between Sparta and Persia is surrounded by stories that have been passed down for thousands of years, and with each retelling, the line between history and legend becomes blurrier. When we hear about Thermopylae, our minds immediately picture King Leonidas standing with his 300 Spartans, holding off a vast Persian army with sheer bravery and unmatched skill. It's a story of heroism that has inspired countless generations, yet when we dig deeper, we discover that much of what we know may not be entirely accurate. This raises a critical question. How much of this famous battle is rooted in reality, and how much has been amplified by myth? Ancient historians, particularly Herodotus, provided some of the earliest accounts of the battle. While his writings are invaluable, they were also written decades after the events, relying on oral histories, secondhand reports, and perhaps the desire to inspire admiration for Greek courage. Numbers, details of the fighting, and even the personalities involved may have been exaggerated to create a dramatic and compelling narrative. For example, the depiction of the Persian army as an overwhelming force of hundreds of thousands could have been intended more to glorify the Spartan stand than to provide an accurate count. The line between fact and fiction becomes difficult to discern when accounts are filtered through such lenses. Even the iconic image of 300 Spartans may be misleading. While it's true that Leonidas led a core group of elite warriors, he was supported by thousands of other Greek allies. Over time, the story simplified into a narrative that emphasized the small band of Spartans against impossible odds, creating a symbol of courage rather than a complete historical record. This doesn't diminish their bravery, but it does show how myth has shaped our perception, sometimes overshadowing the contributions of others and the complexity of the battle itself. Beyond numbers and troop composition, there are other elements that blend myth with reality. Stories of miraculous last stands, heroic speeches, and divine favor contribute to the epic tone of the battle. Some accounts suggest that the Spartans fought with supernatural discipline, that their courage could inspire fear in entire armies, and that they defied death with near mythical endurance. While there is no doubt that the Spartans were highly trained and disciplined warriors, the embellishments serve to transform historical events into legend, raising questions about what actually occurred on that fateful battlefield. Furthermore, myths often serve a purpose beyond storytelling. They reflect cultural values and political messages. The tale of Thermopylae wasn't just about military history. It reinforced the ideals of sacrifice, loyalty, and courage central to Greek identity. By elevating the Spartans to near-heroic status, the story became a tool for cultural cohesion, a way to inspire citizens and soldiers alike. But this also means that the historical record we rely on is influenced by narrative agendas, making it difficult to separate objective facts from symbolic meaning. Even modern depictions, from films to literature, continue to blur the lines between reality and legend, reinforcing the heroic imagery while often ignoring logistical, strategic, and historical nuances. As we examine the battle with a critical eye, we begin to realize that understanding Thermopylae requires not just looking at what happened, but also understanding how stories evolve over time, how myths are created, and how they can both illuminate and obscure the truth. The interplay between myths and reality adds another layer of mystery, challenging historians and viewers alike to question what we truly know about the clash between Sparta and Persia. When we talk about the battle between Sparta and Persia, most people focus on the immediate drama, the bravery of the Spartans, the massive Persian forces, the clash at Thermopylae. But history is rarely so simple. Beyond the battlefield, there were consequences that shaped the course of Greek history in ways that are still debated today. These consequences are hidden in the folds of strategy, politics, and society, and they reveal that the impact of the battle went far beyond the heroism we all know. One of the most immediate consequences was the effect on Greek morale and unity. The stand of the Spartans became a rallying symbol for the entire Greek world, inspiring city-states to put aside internal rivalries and unite against a common enemy. Even though Sparta and its allies suffered devastating losses, the psychological impact of their resistance was profound. It demonstrated that the mighty Persian Empire was not invincible, planting seeds of hope and determination that would later be critical in subsequent battles like Salamis and Plataea. The hidden consequence here isn't just military, it's cultural. The story of resistance shaped a sense of shared identity among the Greeks, reinforcing ideas of courage, strategy, and civic pride that would echo for generations. But there were also less obvious, more strategic consequences. The battle forced both sides to rethink their approaches to warfare. The Persians, despite their vast army, faced unexpected difficulties due to Greek tactics and terrain. Their plans to quickly subdue Greece were delayed, giving the Greek city-states time to organize, prepare defenses, and refine strategies. On the other side, the Spartans learned lessons about alliances, resource limitations, and the value of intelligence gathering. The confrontation at Thermopylae highlighted vulnerabilities in both armies, and those lessons influenced campaigns long after the battle ended, shaping the broader course of the Persian Wars. The political consequences are equally fascinating. The battle elevated Sparta's prestige and solidified its reputation as a military powerhouse, giving it leverage in Greek politics. Other city-states, inspired by Spartan bravery, were motivated to contribute forces and resources to the common cause. But this also created tensions, as Sparta's growing influence challenged the autonomy and ambitions of other Greek polities. At the same time, Persia had to manage the perception of defeat despite ultimately continuing their campaign. Leadership decisions, the handling of resources, and strategic planning were all affected by the outcome, even in ways that are not always clear from historical records. Economic and logistical effects were part of the hidden consequences as well. Supplying large armies over long distances, especially after unexpected resistance, strained Persian resources. The Greeks, while smaller in number, learned how to maximize local knowledge, terrain, and alliances to offset the advantages of larger forces. These adaptations were subtle, often overlooked, but they fundamentally changed how warfare was conducted in the region, influencing not just this conflict but future campaigns for decades to come. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these hidden consequences is that many of them are still debated by historians today. We may never know the full extent of the political maneuvering, the morale shifts, or the strategic recalculations that followed the battle. Some scholars suggest there were secret negotiations, intelligence operations, and undisclosed alliances that shaped subsequent events, while others focus on cultural and symbolic impacts. What is clear, however, is that the consequences of this legendary clash extend far beyond the narrow focus of the battlefield, reaching into the very foundations of Greek identity, military thought, and historical memory. The battle between Sparta and Persia is remembered as a story of heroism, strategy, and endurance. But as we've seen, it is also a story full of unanswered questions and enduring mysteries. From the unexpected strength of Sparta to the unclear numbers of soldiers from secret strategies to the decisive role of geography, and from the myths that shaped our perception to the hidden consequences that influenced history, every aspect of this legendary clash leaves us with more questions than answers. It reminds us that history is rarely black and white. The stories passed down through generations are shaped by culture, perspective, and sometimes even imagination. The bravery of the Spartans, the ambitions of the Persians, and the unfolding of events at Thermopylae all exist somewhere between fact and legend, leaving a puzzle that historians and enthusiasts continue to piece together. What makes this battle so fascinating isn't just the heroism or the scale of the conflict, it's the mysteries that survive even after thousands of years. How many soldiers truly fought? What secret maneuvers were decisive yet never recorded? How much did terrain and strategy, rather than sheer courage, shape the outcome? These questions invite us to look deeper, to think critically, and to marvel at the complexity of history. In the end, the battle between Sparta and Persia is more than a tale of swords and shields. It is a story about human ingenuity, endurance, and the way stories themselves shape our understanding of the past. The questions remain, the mysteries endure, and the legacy of Thermopylae continues to inspire, challenge, and captivate us even today.